Joel Rubin, who served as Deputy Secretary of State during the Obama administration, with us now. Good morning to you, Joel. I know that there has been so much. Yeah, there's been so much to talk about in regards to this conflict. So we welcome your perspective here. This is a NATO member, Turkey's President Erdogan. He is rejecting claims that Hamas is a terrorist organization. I mean, for it to be a NATO member saying this, does that make Erdogan a terrorist?
Well, Adrienne, it's great to be with you. It doesn't make Erdogan a terrorist, but it really flies in the face of any logic and any assessment of who Hamas is. Hamas is a terrorist organization in the United States. We designate Hamas as such. So does the European Union. And then their actions are clearly and massacring civilians, terrorist activities. So for Turkey and the president to take this position, he may be trying to grab the mantle of nationalism in the Middle East once again. Clearly, Turkey has relations with Hamas, and sometimes that can be useful. There can be value in that engagement, particularly in springing these refugees. But that makes no sense whatsoever, and really is a deplorable statement.
But it's clearly a change in tone. I mean, these were damning comments. He has condemned Israel's attacks on Gaza. He canceled a trip to Israel, though I'm not really quite sure what he was expecting to do there, considering his stance and his critique, but saying more that Hamas was this liberation group. Don't you believe that that's something that a number of Arab nations believe?
You know, I have to say that with Turkey, it's been incredible to watch, because only up until very recently, Turkey and Israel were warming relations. There was a lot of discussion bilaterally. Turkey has allowed Sweden into NATO, or accepted them being into NATO, related to the war in Ukraine in particular. And many of our allies in the Arab world as well are sort of taking these positions now. The pressure is intense inside these countries regarding the Palestinian cause. But make no mistake, Hamas is a terrorist organization. The United States is in the right in supporting Israel at this moment, in helping it to defend itself against an ongoing, persistent threat. Hamas is ISIS, and Hamas is acting in a manner that it not only kills Israeli civilians, but is harming its own people. And this is why we're in the conundrum we're in. Hamas has not been a good player, a fair actor when it comes to anything related to peace in the Middle East. And regrettably, this violence now, this most extreme level of violence, is not the first time that Hamas has provoked violence in the region. So I think we're seeing all these pressures come together right now. And clearly, even with Egypt, they are not anxious to take in Palestinian refugees. But at the same time, they are blockading Hamas from the southern side of the Gaza Strip as well.
But Joel, you served in a cabinet with President Obama, and you know how difficult it is sometimes to get messaging right. Does this make it more difficult for President Biden or any president, considering this is more than rhetoric? This is not propaganda to Erdogan or to other people who believe this. There are people in our own country who believe that Hamas is a liberation army. How does President Biden respond?
Yeah, I think he's been good at trying to state that Hamas is not the Palestinians, because there is a very important point here. The Palestinian people deserve a state. There needs to be some type of two-state agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. But Hamas is a terrorist organization. And what the president is saying related to that has been very clear. But we are seeing, to your point, Adrienne, a significant uptick in anti-Semitic language now across the country, and language applauding Hamas, applauding the attacks of October 7th, which were unprovoked terrorist attacks against civilians, killing them in their sleep and dragging them as hostages into the Gaza Strip. That is unacceptable. And we just have to continue to point out the reality that Hamas does not accept the state of Israel. It wants to murder Jews, launched this attack on their own volition. And those who support Hamas are indeed supporting this kind of activity, these kinds of terrorist attacks. When it comes to diplomacy, though, we have a lot of different players in the Middle East with a lot of different pressures. But here at home, with the way President's speaking about it, and also denouncing Islamophobic attacks and anti-Semitic attacks here at home as a result, it's very important to keep that kind of message going and not get dragged into the hate dynamic that Hamas is trying to create.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.